I've been involved in public life as a local councillor for 25 years. I suppose I've been reared with politics in relation to how one works with community. My late father was the county registrar here with a responsibility for elections, so therefore I got an early input into how politics works. I've been involved in my home community of Knockbridge, a little village outside of Dundalk, in many aspects of life. I suppose I started off, believe it or not, installing the biggest group water scheme in Louth, where the community had no running water. That gave me a taste, I suppose, for how you would deal with the public. I'm acutely involved in Teddy Town's organisations and all things community. So for me, politics has always been about people.
Right.
And when you get the opportunity to hopefully get elected to Dáil Éireann to try and make changes where changes can be made, local authority, while I enjoy it, it can be quite frustrating because the legislation is obviously made at national level.
Right.
And I think I can do a better job for the people of Louth if they choose me as one of the representatives.
Okay, and in particular the selection process, how did you find the selection process in particular in relation to gender quotas?
Well, I had no issue with it at all, in that I went in front of the 250 strong Fianna Fáil delegates who selected me by majority vote. Obviously the issue of the gender quotas were introduced by parties, obviously in order to make sure that they secured national funding, and we all knew from day one that a female would be added to the ticket, and my running mate obviously is a female, and I think we're out there to try and win a seat on behalf of Fianna Fáil.
Right, okay. Now some people have said that it's undemocratic having the gender quotas.
Well, I don't necessarily subscribe to gender quotas. I think it's obviously an attempt to try and encourage more females to get involved, and that's good, but I would prefer to see people work their way through the ranks of an organisation, and you know, to have an interest in politics rather than just being selected for the sake of being a female.
Yeah. Now, this time around Louth there's 5 seats. It's traditionally and mainly been 4 seats. Fianna Fáil usually ran 3 candidates, but now they're running 2. Why is that?
Well, the percentages speak for themselves. I think anybody who's acutely watching polls and pollsters, well, I would say that the only poll that you can count is the one on election day. The reality is that Fianna Fáil in Louth have lost a lot of ground. We were at 42% at one time. The last general election, which I stood as well, got a credible vote considering that Fianna Fáil were not doing well. The reality is that we were in around 15% of the electorate. I would say that the strategists at headquarters decided that it would be 2 candidates. The reality is we'd like to think we could win the 2 seats, but I think I think if we can retain the seat that has now been vacated by Seamus Kirk, is what certainly the aim of the party is, and to build for a stronger probably general election in the future.
Right, and how far off are Fianna Fáil getting back to that 42%?
Well, I have to say I'm out canvassing night, noon and morn. Certainly Fianna Fáil is no longer the toxic party that it was in 2011. We certainly got a lot of bad reaction in 2011. Things have changed this time. I'm on the doorsteps, as I said, every day. People are now recognising that Fianna Fáil didn't make any promises in 2011, but this coalition has made many ones that they haven't delivered on, and have broken promises, and I think a sizable proportion of the electorate want to see a change.
Right. And what are those issues on the doorsteps at the moment?
Well, there's many issues. Health, obviously, and the overcrowding in our hospitals and A&E. Water continues to be a major issue. Housing, for example, we have over 5,000 people on the housing waiting list in Louth alone. Crime, fear of opening doors. I mean, incredible to see people standing, not because you're a politician, I should add, that they're not opening the door, but fear in opening the door. Once it goes to get anyway dark in the evening times, people are not wanting to open the doors. And the signal in relation to crime and the need to do something on it is coming across loud and clear, and I hope and that we can get our Garda numbers back to what they were. There's no doubt that the increase in garden numbers, for example, in the Louth constituency, in particular on the border over the last number of weeks, people are beginning to feel a little bit safer.
Right. Now, you mentioned housing. During the boom, we thought we had too many houses. How does it happen we have too few houses?
Well, that's a very, very good question, because strangely I have put down several motions to this local authority, believe it or not. One very early back in 1991, and repeated the motion recently. When you walk round your towns and villages and see the number of vacant houses that are out there, we don't have a housing shortage in this country. I've been arguing for a long number of years the need for a scheme to encourage people to bring them back into use. I think that's something that should be looked at. The reality is that Fianna Fáil always were in the business of building houses. There's been an acute lack of building programme and housing programme. For example, in Louth, I think we've either purchased or built something of the order of 60 houses this year. I mean, we'd usually be into hundreds of houses in previous years, and making them available to the many people who are on the housing waiting list. It needs to be ramped up big time, because the demand is there. Yeah. But the solution to it is probably not easy. But I would certainly call, and have called, for an incentive scheme, even to do it here in Louth, to encourage people to make those houses that are unoccupied available by way of a grant, and that the properties would be made available to local authority clients on the housing list. Furthermore, believe it or not, it would rejuvenate an awful lot of our smaller communities. To house people where they want to be housed, obviously, would rejuvenate schools in rural areas, and would add to the economy of a lot of these smaller towns and villages.
Right. Okay, now obviously in the term of the next Dáil 2016, it's centenary year, not specific to Louth, but what is specific to Louth is today is the 50th anniversary of the bombing of Dundalk. Do you think are those issues still alive in people's minds, or do people feel that they've been resolved?
No, I think I've had a personal experience of the event you're referring to, and that my late father, that I referred to earlier, his office was directly across from where the bomb happened. Fortunately, he was due to pick me up that evening from the bus, but I had got a lift home, and it was the grace of God that he actually had left the office, otherwise he could have been a victim as well. I think Louth has suffered from the Troubles. We've suffered from investment. We've suffered, believe it or not, in terms of an image. I've been very, very involved in particularly last 10 years, in terms of the whole issue of cross-border cooperation. In fact, I was chaired for 5 years the Memorandum of Understanding between Down Council and Louth local authorities, where there's great interaction happening, where we have potential. For example, if you take our tourism product that was lost in this county, not just because of the Troubles, but because we maybe hadn't the hunger for tourism, the potential for this corridor between Belfast and Dublin, of which East Meath, Louth can benefit, to me, that's just one small example of where cooperation is starting to happen, where we have I'd say an area of outstanding beauty between the Mournes and Coolies that needs to be developed. A lot of that was stymied as a result of the Troubles. So we're trying to build on that, and I see the opportunities there in terms of what I can bring to a national stage for Louth, as I said, tourism being just one simple example of, if we can put the Troubles behind us and do away with the image that unfortunately we earned in this neck of the woods.